Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today, Keep AP Running During a Crisis. Please note that all lines are on mute and will remain on mute throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, please enter them into the chat box and we'll address them during the Q&A period at the end of the presentation. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce Sean, who will begin.
Awesome, thank you so much. Welcome to everyone that is on today to our webinar, like Remington was just saying, on how to keep AP automation running in a crisis. So my name is Sean. I will be your host for today's webinar. I am an account executive here at Sage AP Automation. So I work with clients to better understand their AP workflow with the goal of minimizing the time that clients are spending on each step. So before we get started, I just wanted to let you know about an offer that we have running right now. So to learn more about AP automation, sign up and attend a demo, and we'll send you a $20 gift card of your choice. So just visit our landing page and fill out the form. The link will be in your chat here to select. Now, in the webinar, we'll be covering the impact of the crisis on finance teams, top challenges in accounts payable, as well as solutions to keep AP running during the pandemic. An AP automation walkthrough, and then a Q&A session at the end here today to finish us up. So please feel free to type your questions in any time at the Q&A, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar today. So let's start by looking at how finance teams have been impacted by the pandemic. When the COVID-19 crisis started and organizations were forced into remote work, a lot of accounting teams who relied heavily on paper suddenly couldn't carry out their day-to-day tasks. Now, based on recent surveys, 75% of finance leaders had to make major changes before staff could meet their responsibilities remotely. So, fraud has been on the rise. Right now, fraudsters are using the uncertainty around the crisis to target businesses. In the first and second quarter of 2020, there was a spike of about 112% in financial fraud. According to the FBI, business email compromise, or BEC fraud, is particularly on the rise. This is when an email is used to attack organizations that conduct wire transfers or have suppliers abroad. So, in a recent case, a company allegedly received an email from a CEO that they were conducting business with. In this email, the CEO requested the wire transfer date be moved and the recipient account be changed due to the coronavirus outbreak and quarantine processes and precautions. The email address used by the fraudsters was almost identical to the CEO's actual email address, with only one letter altered. This is a perfect example of why companies need to be more vigilant with their investigation of emails, verifying the details carefully before proceeding with payments. Now, aside from fraud, what are some of the other challenges AP teams are facing? Well, according to a survey of finance professionals, some of the top AP challenges include manual data entry and inefficient processes, manual routing of invoices for approvals, and lost or missing invoices. When colleagues are remote, it's often harder to follow up for approvals, and some tasks can only be handled in the office, like managing paper invoices and checks, for example. Inefficient processes in general lead to higher costs. As organizations work through the current crisis, a lot of them are looking for new ways to drive down the costs and mitigate risks. We're going to dive deeper into these topics that have impacted AP teams the most. So hidden costs, higher risks, and remote work. So starting off here with higher hidden costs. Manual accounts payable is more costly, and here's a breakdown of why. When receiving invoices, you often need to download them from various sources such as email, mail, or even vendor portals. Then you need to print them and track them, so that way you know that you have received those invoices. Now, after that comes the approvals cycle. Invoices might be routed by email or physically to approvers, which can then get delayed or lost. Following up with approvers is another lengthy process, which can take up to 20% of a typical AP clerk's time. Now, finally, data entry and coding takes roughly 57% of the day, and we haven't even accounted for discrepancy handling, scanning, and filing yet. So let's break this down further and look at the typical cost to process a single invoice. When considering labor alone, if you have one AP clerk processing invoices full-time at about $20 an hour, or approximately $3,400 per month, 300 to 400 invoices per month would cost your business about $9 to $12 per invoice. This AP clerk could be spending their time on more valuable tasks rather than data entry. In addition to labor and delays, there are also hard costs when it comes to managing paper, such as printing. One of our customers and the Director of Finance and Administration at Athabasca Catering said, in our head office alone, printing costs was averaging to $300 to $400 per month. Now, storage of financial documents is another hidden AP cost that is often overlooked. Our customer, Athabasca Catering, said, we just don't have the space in our office anymore. We can keep a year or two worth of files, but after that, we have to send it to a storage company. This story may sound familiar to you. We'd like to run a quick poll to understand your challenges better. So here, we'll launch the poll now. If you could please select from one of the options on your screen, what is your biggest AP challenge? So from the identified options here, interdepartmental accountability, approval process follow-up, identifying and managing errors, inability to process AP remotely, or data entry and coding. Now, for the first one, lack of interdepartmental accountability, it can be hard to track down the bottlenecks when you don't have a structured process. Being able to see where delays are taking place will help you hold the approvers accountable. With approval process follow-up, this can be time-consuming and frustrating without a centralized platform. There's also the risk of letting one quick go-ahead lead to an invoice that shouldn't have been paid. Now, identifying and managing errors, which are caused by manually entering information. Inability to process AP remotely. We find that most of the vendors are switching to online payments such as EFT or ACH. So if you don't have remote payments set up, it can make the process even longer. Now, with data entry and coding, as we all know, isn't the most enjoyable thing to do manually every day. Now, that we've gone through over the high costs of manual AP, we're going to jump into how the pandemic has increased accounts payables risk. So what are the most common types of accounts payable risks? Well, first, there is external fraud that we discussed earlier. This could be an attempt to access a company's account or fraudulently gain access to confidential information. Another common scam involves fraudsters submitting false invoices or even attempting to change vendor bank information. Next, there's a waste, such as duplicate payments. A vendor might be getting paid more than once because they received the same invoice in different formats or due to an employee error. And finally, there is expense abuse. This happens when an employee often unknowingly takes advantage of the expense policy of a company or lack thereof. In a survey of more than 1,000 employees, 85% admitted to falsifying expense reports. And in fact, 82% of employees that lied have never been caught by the company. So is AP fraud something that we should be concerned with? As we saw earlier, the answer is an outstanding yes. 82% of organizations have experienced actual or attempted payments fraud. And most often, it is the AP department that is the target of fraud. Finance teams need to be even more vigilant than ever. One way to prevent fraud and abuse is by introducing greater controls and more approval levels. In this poll that's going to be set up here now, we'd like to learn more about how many levels of approvals you have on invoices. 0 means that an employee can pay invoices without any approval. 1 might be a manager, 2, a manager and the purchaser, and so on. Now, we've seen how high costs and risks can affect organizations. We are now going to cover how remote work is affecting AP teams, especially during this crisis. As AP teams are forced to work remotely for the first time, it causes new challenges and more delays. Processing invoices manually in the office already took 16 days on average to complete. Remote work increases these delays even further as data becomes less accessible. Other challenges include access to software, since most traditional accounting software is on-premises rather than cloud-based, which means that it can't be accessed from everywhere. Finally, a lot of vendors still send paper invoices and only accept checks. This poses a unique challenge for AP teams, since often the only way to retrieve these documents or cut checks is to go into the office. But as we know, workforces are remote and not fully equipped to operate as they normally would. To better understand how confident leaders were about business continuity in the crisis, a poll was conducted with 500 businesses. It found that if finance staff had to work from home, only 54% of the employees would be able to make all of their payments. In fact, more than half of the respondents said they expect a significant impact on their finance team's ability to process invoices. We can see that a lot of finance teams are not very confident or equipped to accommodate the demands of a remote workforce. So let's hear an example from a Sage AP Automation customer who had issues processing expenses while employees were dispersed. Robert from Athabasca Catering said, "All staff here at Athabasca Catering are working from different sites. Submitting expense claims became very challenging during the pandemic. But first, we have another poll to better understand what's top of mind for you when it comes to remote work." You should see these questions pop up on your screen here now. Are there any processes that you can only complete in the office? Please check all that apply. So for receiving invoices, with paper invoices, you will be making frequent trips to a physical location to gather them. It is crucial to consider efficiency and security. And security means data security and also health security. You want employee well-being to be a priority, and traveling frequently to work to receive invoices can be a questionable problem during a pandemic. Now with invoice matching, this part of AP ensures accurate vendor payments and is essential to detect potential fraudulent invoices. Think about what controls you could use to make this process more efficient, agile, and accessible to your team from anywhere. Cutting checks. Another common practice with AP is writing paper checks, and it tends to be expensive, as we explained earlier. With COVID-19, many companies are switching to touchless payment methods. Consider how much paper checks are costing your business and what other tools are available in the market. I'm going to talk about more in the upcoming slides related to this cutting check process. Now, access to accounting software. This might be the case if your accounting process is decentralized, if you have more than one system, or if your business has restrictive IT access. Now, if you don't need to be on site, if you have a digital platform or online systems that you can access outside of physical office, it will help you stay and operate remotely in the long term. Now, non-AP related, of course, you may still be going to the office for other purposes. And if that's the case, we have a few suggestions in the upcoming slides that could help you access non-AP related tasks. So now that we understand the challenges with AP during a crisis, let's take a look at the solutions that can help us overcome them. Earlier, I mentioned that only 54% of businesses are in a position to make remote payments, leaving 46% with makeshift or traditional methods such as paper checks. An easy way to solve that problem is by switching to electronic payments. These can help AP teams continue to process payments without interruption, even when remote work is required. There are several options available. Outsourced payment providers, such as Envoice Pay or EFT Canada, can help you set up vendors for ACH or EFT payments. Some even take a vendor management and the liability for payments, both saving your team time and mitigating risks. Virtual credit cards are another alternative that can help you securely pay vendors while earning rebates. Finally, if it's available, you can go directly through your bank, who often have the best prices for digital payments such as EFT and ACH. However, this means that you will still need to manage your vendors and payments in a separate system and reconcile them yourself, which of course can be time-consuming. Now, you can also use a software to keep processes organized. A system such as Zoho or SharePoint will allow you to share documents and information with colleagues. You can track workflows such as approvals and manage projects and time. However, if these tools are not well integrated with your accounting software, it can create more work by having to transfer and maintain that information between the two systems. Moving on to document management. A system such as Confluence can help organize your AP documents and integrates with popular tools such as Slack, SharePoint, and Trello. You can create action items and track the pace of each task. Some document management systems also provide compliance and data security, which are crucial to AP. Although managing documents in the cloud is a step above paper, these solutions often either lack integration with accounting systems or do not solve the workflow problem of tracking and following up on the full workflow, from purchase orders all the way through to payments. AP automation solutions such as Sage AP Automation help reduce costs by eliminating repetitive manual work such as data entry. AP automation solutions often have a seamless integration with your accounting software, saving your team valuable time by syncing lists, invoices, purchase orders, expenses, and of course, payments. They also virtually eliminate data entry. AP automation tools help to reduce risks by enabling more robust approvals. With more levels of approval, there's less chance for fraud and errors to slip through. They can also flag certain common errors, such as duplicate payments. Finally, AP automation tools that are cloud-based can empower not only your finance team, but anyone in your organization who needs to approve invoices. Accounts payable can be managed from a browser, and approvals can be done through the web or, of course, a mobile application. Now, we're going to take a closer look at automation and its role in keeping accounts payable running in a crisis. So, as we discussed earlier, one of the areas that AP automation really helps AP is by reducing costs. By reducing labor-intensive and inefficient tasks, organizations with AP automation have saved roughly 60 to 80% of the costs associated with processing an invoice, with the average coming down to $3 or less per invoice. Unfortunately, you're also not going to be able to spend nearly as much time on everyone's favorite task, data entry, because you'll gain an extra 83% reduction in data entry. Let's look at how Athabasca Catering was able to cut costs. Prior to Sage AP Automation, they were spending about $1,200 per quarter on printing and copying alone. Now, these costs have been cut down to $100 per quarter, a 92% reduction. With purchase orders, invoices, and employee expenses managed through Sage AP Automation, their data entry has been reduced by more than half, freeing up the team's time for other more important tasks. Next, let's go over how AP Automation helps mitigate fraud risk. By generating digital audit trails, it's easier to find and track every document and the approval channel it went through. Gaining 100% visibility into approvals, who approved what, when, and how long it took. Flagging suspicious activities, such as, for example, duplicate payments, and by enhancing visibility into employee expense spend. This helps improve compliance and reduces the risk of abuse and errors. Let's look at how one of our customers was able to stop fraud before it happened. Derek, a financial accountant at a supply chain company, told us, "We recently received an invoice that was completely fraudulent, but looked like one of our invoices that we normally receive. It was uploaded into Sage AP Automation, and it routed to the appropriate person, and the approver instantly defined that it was a fraudulent invoice." Having better controls in place made it easier for this customer to verify and approve invoices before they're paid. Finally, AP Automation helps you and your team have a remote environment to stay productive and access critical information from anywhere. Whether your team is in an office or, of course, working from the outside, they can access AP from a centralized system in the cloud, make payments remotely, and also manage AP processes such as approving invoices or submitting expense reports through the web and/or mobile app. So let's take a look at a couple of customers who managed accounts payable through the pandemic with Sage AP Automation. One of our customers who got started during the pandemic said that it was easier to get up and running than she thought. Since Sage AP Automation runs in the cloud and has a quick implementation time, it's easy to connect your ERP and start using the platform even while you're remote. Another customer said Sage AP Automation was a lifesaver during COVID-19. They were able to continue managing AP without missing a beat, even while staff were remote and getting invoices processed and vendors paid on time. That really brings us full circle to what it means to have a 360-degree AP automation solution. If you decide to look for AP automation software, look for a solution that ties in all functions on one central platform: purchase orders, invoices, payments, and of course, expenses. That's how we do it at Sage AP Automation. All AP processes and data are stored in one system. This means no loose spreadsheets and random software shared by individual departments. I'll get into how AP Automation simplifies all four of these workflows. Let's look at purchase orders first. Purchase order automation gives you automatic matching. The software imports POs created in the ERP. You can also create purchase requisitions directly in the system and automate the approval process in one place. With invoices, you get digital storage. This can search invoices by vendor, GL code, amount, legal entity, or any other information on the invoice. You can customize approval channels on one platform. Invoices can be routed based on location, department, project, vendor, etc. For example, an employee in New York can easily code an invoice to the company's California location, which they of course have their marketing head. Now, another major benefit is the use of artificial intelligence, which minimizes data entry errors and fast tracks accounts payable for you. The third workflow, payments. Some payment automation providers assume that 100% liability for correctly paying vendors. With a secure payments provider, every transaction is insured with a payment guarantee or warranty. The other benefit is vendor management. Outsourcing payments to a third party puts them in charge of collecting, updating, and securing sensitive vendor payment data. There is always a risk for your company when you are storing sensitive data in-house. A third-party solution can effectively manage that for you. And now that vendors are moving away from physical systems of payment, you can get the option to pay them via ACH, EFT, virtual credit card, checks, and actually even new wires. Finally, employee expense management. One of the top complaints from employees about expenses is the paperwork. With automation, you solve that problem by giving the employer an employee's mobile access. Employees can upload receipts and create expense reports from anywhere. You now save time with automatic GL coding by setting up customized expense receipt categories that map your GL codes so coding is automatically completed in the background for your accounting team. It also speeds up approvals by giving both parties, the employer and the employees, online access. Employees can create reports online and route it to the approver. Once approved, the AP team can reimburse employees electronically. Moving on, I'm going to go into a quick product demonstration here. So on my updated screen, this is what it would look like within your screen. So on the left here, we have the 4 core modules that we actually offer here at Sage AP Automation. So on the top, expenses, purchase orders, invoices, and payments. Now, one thing that you'll note is on the top of the screen, we'll have the workflow. So here in the case of the invoice module, the invoices will flow from left to right as they graduate to the next step in the process. In the middle of the screen is the workspace, or of course the work queue. And here on the left will be the organizational structure. So for example, if you have one legal entity, if you have multiple legal entities, we can show all of them here in one screen, which of course you can select into and even segment further by department, division, location, etc. Now, we do also offer unlimited users at no additional cost across all of our pricing plans. So from there, you can set security and access as well on the user level. So we can set security and access on the modular level. So for example, if your purchasers only want to have access to the purchase order module, we can do this. For approvers, we can set them up so that they only see the approvals tab. And also, if you only have people specifically wanting to see information in certain departments or legal entities, we can set that up as well here. Now, to start us off, we'll start here in the purchase order module. Here, as you can see, the layout is relatively similar to the invoice module. In fact, every single module's layout is pretty much the same. And we do this so that training is as fast and easy as possible for your team so that they can get up and running as soon as possible. Now here, your purchasers can select the legal entity that they'd like to pertain this purchase requisition to, select the vendor from the dropdown, as well as input a description. Now, we do automatically pull in all of your standard lists from Sage. So for example, your vendor list will be here for your selection. You won't need to add anything or select anything or customize anything on this end. As long as you update it in Sage, it will be selectable here within the software. Same thing goes for your GL account codes. And at this stage, if the purchaser does have sufficient accounting knowledge, you could of course grant them access to also add in the appropriate GL account code for this purchase requisition. Otherwise, this purchase requisition is ready to be submitted for approval. Now, once submitted for approval, as an approver, this is the screen that I'm going to see. So I can either batch select and approve or reject from this screen, or dive in on an individual basis to actually see that purchase order, see the information on the left, maybe any comments if they were left, and then of course, thumbs up or thumbs down from this screen here. Now, something to keep in mind, in every single approval tab that we have in every module, upon rejection, a comment will be necessary. And this is to ensure that once it is put back to the person that submitted it, they do understand what needs to be changed, and they don't have to leave the system, jump into their email to figure out what went wrong. Now, upon thumbs up of this purchase order, it will move into the Committed tab. Now, the Committed tab will just be the outstanding approved purchase orders that are in the system. Now, something to note is if you are creating your purchase orders right now within Sage, you can import those purchase orders and they will show up directly here in the Committed tab, in which case you would skip the first 3 tabs here in the purchase order module. Now, 3 things to really take note of here in this tab: the total, the amount drawn, and the amount remaining. The total here will of course be the total of the approved purchase order that we're looking at, and the amount drawn and the amount remaining will change as invoices come into the system and are automatically matched against this purchase order. So once an invoice comes in and is matched against this purchase order, the amount drawn will increase and the amount remaining will decrease until this purchase order is closed. Now, once closed, it will automatically move into the Closed tab here. And a good way to think of the Closed tab is really just your digital filing cabinet of all purchase orders that have gone through the software up until this point. So everything is tagged and searchable. So you can either use the filters on the left to search for vendors, date ranges, dollar amount ranges, etc. Or you can use the global search functionality here on the top right to search for specific keywords. Now, you can also report on a CSV or PDF basis. I'll show you what that report actually looks like once we hit the invoice module. But from here, that really sums up the purchase order module. And next will be the invoice module. From here, we do have a few ways of getting invoices into the system. First and foremost that we'll talk about today is paper-based invoices. So with those paper-based invoices, all you have to do is batch scan and upload all those pages into the software here. And they're going to show up on your screen just like this example here on mine. Now, what this is saying is that this is one invoice with 10 pages. However, we do know that this may be incorrect if we just batch scanned in a ton of different invoices at once. So all you have to do is click the auto split button here on the top. And as you can see, it's actually going to split all those pages into individual invoices now. Now, if your invoices do have multiple pages, we can actually just use the drag and drop functionality like I have here on my screen to attach the appropriate pages together, click Save, and create invoices. And now those paper-based invoices will flow here into the In Progress tab. Now, for any invoices that you're receiving via email right now, the best thing is you can actually set your email to have forwarding rules so that once those invoices come and hit your email inbox, they will automatically forward directly into the software here in the In Progress tab, where they will meet those mailed in invoices. Now, here in the In Progress tab, once your invoices are in, they'll show up here in the queue. And to click on one as an example, to show you what I'm seeing, this will be a picture of the invoice. So whatever was emailed to you or of course sent to you via paper. On the left-hand side here, we've got the header information. And on the bottom of the screen here, we do have the line item details as well as the totals and taxes. Now, automatically, we will capture this header information here on the left here for you. So as long as you get your invoices in by end of day, it will be ready and coded for you at the beginning of the next day. We will also automatically capture on the bottom right here the subtotals, taxes, and totals. Now, this is really going to leave this line item detail here for you, but we do have a couple ways of automating that as well. So first of all, if any of your invoices are recurring invoices based on vendor, we can just click the Smart Code button here on the top right. And because the system remembers historical line item coding, it will populate these missing line item details for you. Now, If you do use purchase orders, you can toggle to also see the purchase order here in case you wanted to see them side by side, and it will automatically be matched for you here on the left. Now, we can actually click this PO adoption button here on the bottom right. It's going to pop up this screen here, which shows me all of the line items on the corresponding purchase order. In which case, I can just click on it and adopt those PO line items directly onto the invoice. So now those line items are complete as well. Now, we have also just introduced OCR technology on the line item detail. So for those unfamiliar with OCR, it does stand for optical character recognition, which basically means it's just going to read the image of the invoice and populate these missing line item details based on what's on the invoice. Now, one more thing to note is that none of these fields are actually going to be hard-coded at this point, which means that, as you can see, I can click into any of them and adjust them as I need. Now, from here, typically the data entry has been complete, and all you do is make sure that it is correct. Now, this invoice is ready to be submitted for approval down here on the bottom left. Now, this invoice will flow into the Approvals tab, which, as you can see, is looking the exact same as the Approvals tab in the Purchase Order module, so I won't go into too much depth here on this tab. However, I'm going to take you into the back end to show you how we can actually create automatic approval routing channels. So here on the top, we just have the General tab as well as the Modular tabs. So if I click in the Invoice Module tab here, this is where I can create those approval channels. So on the bottom here is just a full list of all the approval channels I have built out right now in my software. And on the top right here, I can just click Create Channel. It's going to show up with this screen here, in which case, of course, I can give it a name and a description if I like, as well as setting either a robust or a very simple approval channel criteria. So as you can see, I can set dollar amount thresholds. And on the bottom here, I can also use any of my standard lists as approval criteria, such as, for example, my vendor, GL account codes, or even departments or locations for routing. Now, once I do create this approval channel, it's actually going to show up something similar to this. And in this example, this is just saying that all invoices above $75,000 related specifically to the finance department will route to these two people for approval. Now, I can designate as many approvers in the system as I like, and I can also create what we call cascading approvals. So in this case, I do have a cascading approval set up where first Sally needs to approve, and then based on Sally's approval, it will move over to Jack for approval. Or I can also group approvers together. And in this case, the invoice will be sent to both Jack and Sally, and really whoever approves it first will push it through the process. Now, coming into the General tab here on the top, we can come down to User Management. Here will just be a full list of all the users in the software, and I can actually set action-based notifications per user. So given that we're talking about approvals, in this case, I have set a daily notification to let this person know that there's still approvals outstanding in their inbox. I can also toggle this off to let them know once per week as well. Now, from here, once an invoice has been approved, it is going to move into the Export tab here. And the Export tab is really the final step in the invoice module. So here, all you have to do is either manually export this data, or you can set this up on a schedule as well to run either daily, weekly, or monthly, at a specific time, specific day, however you want to do that. And essentially, this will flow into your financial system, and for example, within Sage, will flow into the AP module as an unposted batch. Now, once this data has been exported, it's going to move into the Archive tab. And the best way of thinking of the Archive tab is the same as the Close tab in the Purchase Order module, as that digital filing cabinet, except now for all invoices that have gone through the software. So again, everything is tagged and everything is searchable. So you can use these filters on the left, or of course the global search functionality on the top. You can also report on a PDF or CSV basis. So to show you one of these PDFs as an example, this will be the first page of that PDF report. And what this is saying here is just a high-level overview of all those invoices that I had selected, as well as the total down here on the bottom, and hyperlinks here on the left. That will take me directly to the invoice that I select. So here, as an example, it's going to show me the header, picture of the invoice, any coding and approval history, as well as you can see, any backup documentation such as purchase orders, or of course, maybe contract or lease agreements that you might have attached. Now, that sums up the invoice module there in a nutshell. Moving on into payments. Once you do export this information here in the invoice module, they will move into the Create tab here in the Payment module. Now, again, Payments is an optional module, so you can use this module, otherwise continue to use the payment processes you have in place right now. So here in the Create tab, I'm going to see an aged payables list showing me what's current all the way through to over 90 days out. We do also automatically batch payments by vendor for you. You can toggle this on and off if you like. If you just want to pay one of those payments, no problem. But essentially, once selected, just click the Create Payments button here in the top right. And now these payments will flow into the In Progress tab. Here in the In Progress tab is really where we do the match between the payment details and the invoice details for you. So if I click on this as an example, as you can see, I can see the invoice as well as the payment details here on the left. And here I can also set what we call auto release on this payment. So what auto release really means is that once this payment has been approved, it will automatically be sent to the vendor alongside a remittance. Now, of course, I can toggle this off as well. And what this means is that upon approval, it's going to move into the Releases tab, where I can just manually select the payments that I want to release. Now, once your payments have been released, whether it's automatically or of course manually, like here on my screen, they will move into the Paid tab here next. And the Paid tab is the exact same as the Export tab in the Invoice module, except this time, what we're exporting is the payment details back into Sage. So what's going to happen is it will now mark those invoices in Sage as being paid. Now again, once exported, those details will flow into the Archive tab, where again, everything is tagged and searchable. So you can use the filters on the left, or of course, the global search functionality here on the top right, and report either in a CSV or PDF basis again. Now, last but not least, we do have our Expenses module. Now, the Expenses module is a little bit newer, but the best thing about it being new is that every single month we are introducing more and more functionality. Now, as of right now, your employees can either use the desktop or of course the mobile app to submit their receipts for reimbursement. So here, again, whether on the mobile app or on the desktop, they can just click the New button here, and they can just upload an image of a receipt. We'll see if I have one here, just as an example. Perfect. So once I upload this, what I can do is I can either create a new report, in which case I want to relay this expense to, or of course, I can attach it to an existing report. Now, you may not want to give your users access to select these options, in which case you can of course just default an existing report so that they don't have to select anything once this is imported. Now, here they can add in the merchant as well as the totals here as well. And of course here, the category. Now, one thing I do want to preface before we go any further, we are also getting OCR technology here on the line item details for the receipts. So this merchant information, as well as the subtotals here and taxes, will automatically populate once this image has been uploaded. We should be getting this shortly within hopefully the next month or so. Now, with these categories, they can be user-based as well. So here I can select this with meals, and something to consider here as well is each category can be related to a specific GL account code on the back end as well, just to help out your accounting team when it comes to accounting for these receipts. Now, once this is ready, all I have to do is click Create. What's going to happen here? It's just going to take me to this page where it shows me just the high-level information of the info that I had entered, the picture of the receipt, as well as the report that I had attached this receipt to. Now, if I click into this report, it's going to show me just a high-level overview of all the receipts that are currently here within this report, as well as on the top right here, the report total. Now, once this report is ready to be submitted and ready for the employees to be reimbursed, I can just click the Submit button here on the top right. And what's going to happen is it's now going to create an expense invoice. And it's actually going to automatically populate here in the In Progress tab in the Invoice module. And here, if I'm to click on one of these, what's going to happen is going to show me all the receipts that are in this report, as well as on the line item detail, where I can click into each receipt if I need to. From here, the same process as vendor invoices will apply, where I can submit this for approval. And then if I am using the payment module, I can even reimburse the employees from the payment module as well. So I'm never even having to leave this platform. Now, that really covers AP automation and the demo there for you. What I'm going to do here now is I am going to open up the floor for Q&A. So please, if you do have any, I'll see if I can answer them for you.
So I do have some questions here already, and just a reminder, if you have a question, just to enter them within the chat box. So the first one we have here is, which payment methods are supported?
Awesome, great question. So we do have a number of payment methods that are supported, such as EFT, ACH, virtual credit card. We do also support printable checks and FX and wires as well.
What kind of customer support is included?
Yeah, great question. So you're actually given a dedicated customer success manager for the lifetime of your contract with us. So they'll be there essentially during business hours to help you on the phone, via email, or of course, if you need to jump on a video conferencing call with them to show you around the software, they can also be there for your availability.
And the last question I have here is, how long does it take to get set up?
Great question, great question. So the average time for setup is between 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And typically that is because there is between 3 and 4 meetings that will take place. However, I have seen clients get stood up as fast as 4 to 5 business days, just dependent on when they can fit those meetings onto their own calendars.
It does look like that's all the questions that we have. So with that being said, I'd just like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy day to join us today, as well as you, Sean, for presenting.
My pleasure.
Everyone will be receiving an email with the recording when it becomes available, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.
Thank you everyone for jumping on, and again, enjoy the rest of your day as well.